Hi, my name is DH Dunn, and I'm a fantasy adventure author. And I volunteered to do this because of how much it terrified me. So I have a very tight time frame. I might have a tight time frame. So just very briefly, this is the first chapter of Shades of the Sea, which is a book that I have coming out. It is a fantasy adventure mystery and a father-daughter story set in an alternate world, Sicily. I used to live in Sicily, which is why I picked this. So I would have given more background, but I'm not sure I have more than 15 minutes to do this. So I'm going to get into it right now. And please forgive me for how nervous I am. Okay. 10 August 1668. The farm ship Abruzzi. The Sicily of another time, another world. A sailor learns to see in the dark. The words of his father, surely now long dead, echoed inside Taviano Bonatti's mind. Papa had said them to Tavi almost daily, but never had the old saying felt truer than on this dark August night, with the hot Sahara winds blowing from beyond the Mediterranean Sea and upon his perspiring brow. He looked across the harbor as he leaned on the thin wooden railing, waiting silently on the deck of the farm ship Abruzzi. Tonight the dark was everything, and it would decide his future as well as the fate of his daughter. The moon sat about halfway down the side of Mount Etna's massive southern face, the faint crimson light from her peak reminding all of Sicily that even if the world had ended, Etna lived on. Across the water, gathered on the shore and joined together in song, the monsters that had caused that ending faced the harbor, swaying slowly in unison as they stared back at Tavi. The Cantonado la Morte, the singing death. The singers shuffled back and forth on the beach, vaguely human-shaped collections of 2-meter-high translucent jelly, lighting up from inside with a spectrum of colors as they hummed in concert with one another. Their moon song was high-pitched as they sent it into the night air, oblivious to the ruins of Catania behind them. 2 decades earlier, they had forced the few thousand survivors of their arrival out of the great city and into the harbor. On that sad day, Navicita, the city of ships, had been born. It was beautiful, their song. It reminded Tavi of the lullabies his mama used to sing him to sleep with, or the ones he and Lena used to soothe their own little girl into her dreams, back when Audenzia was little and Lena was still alive. Yet now those memories were just a distraction, as were the singers and the fires of Etna. On this pre-dawn morning, all that mattered was a man named Lucani and 9 words scribbled on a folded piece of paper thrust inside the pocket of his blue sifter's vest. 9 words written in Lena's crisp, precise handwriting. 4 bells, August 10, the beach by the Vapore. 6 months ago, he had found her poisoned body, the tiny scrap of paper clutched in Lena's stiff, dead hand. He had no more idea what her note meant then than he did now, but he would find out tonight. Lena had been taken from him, her joy and fire suddenly ripped from his and Z's life. This note was all he had left of her. At 4 bells, he would be on that beach, the arbiter's laws against it be damned. But that was 2 hours from now. He was still a sifter for at least 1 more day, charged by the arbiters with investigating crimes against the people of Navicita. So Lucani came first. He just needed to come quickly. Waiting here in the shadows, Tavi's quarry was unlikely to see him as the man made his customary rounds. Having the suspect in your investigation be addicted to drugs made them predictable, especially when the only supplier for ash dust was here on the Abruzzi. Lucani always met his man near the aft of the large farm ship here at the railings beyond the last row of wheat. Yet tonight his dealer would not be waiting for him, not after Tavi's partner had intercepted him. Tonight Lucani would meet instead with Tavi, the sifter who had been following him for weeks. Closing this investigation was Tavi's last chance to preserve his role as a sifter, his final opportunity. The arbiters would not have usually allowed as many missteps as they had, but he suspected he was the beneficiary of their mercy in the shadow of his wife's death. Not something one would usually expect from an Aether mage, let alone an arbiter. Keeping his feet tense while he gripped the railing, Tavi listened to the creak of the wood through the structure of the farm ship as the waves in the harbor gently moved it back and forth, the whistling of the wind through the mast. He smelled the fertilizer in the nearby soil as it fed the paltry stalks of Durham wheat, undercut with the smoky scent of ashes from the volcano. He felt the shift of the deck under his feet, and he watched. Shadows bathed the deck in darkness, the large loft building at the center of the ship blocking most of the moonlight. He could see well enough, subtle differences in the depths of the black, representing the waving fields of wheat and the various pieces of equipment. None of it had been moving, but now one small section shifted against the wind. Tavi tensed, keeping his breath locked inside his chest. His left hand moved to the pocket of his sifter's vest, coming to grasp the sling and ammunition there. Green stones only. If Lucani ran, Tavi would just give him a nap. His single lethal blue stone was buttoned in his right sleeve pocket where it always was. He had only drawn it once, the night after Lena died. The deeper shadow grew closer to the rows of wheat, Tavi tensing and ready to move. Lucani represented a high-level investigation for the sifters, the most prominent one he had been assigned in months. Talk of the theft of bodies from the morgue had spread through Navicita like ink in the water. Gossip and panic were dangerous things in the city of only several thousand souls, all doomed to spend their lives on a collection of lashed-together sailing ships, with the shore and death from the singers only a stone's throw away. The shadow moved again, a few steps closer this time, taking a moment to examine the long stalks of wheat. Tavi began to pull his sling out of his pocket, still praying he wouldn't need it. Another step and a gasp of surprise as a pair of frightened eyes met his. Elderly eyes, a gaze which ran from Tavi's face down to the bright azure vest he wore, visible through his open cloak in the moonlight. Fire and see, it was not Lucani. It was just one of the farm ship's men out checking his crops, likely worried about the gulls. Sifter, he cried, what are you? A second shadow moved quickly, farther off near the main building amidships. Lucani. Doing his best to gently push the stunned farmer, Tavi ran across the deck and pushed through the rows of crops, tension growing in the pit of his stomach. His last opportunity was pounding across the deck, fleeing from him in a mad dash. Halt, he shouted, his voice carrying across the field. The soil was dry and poor, dust flying into the air around him. Sifter in pursuit. Lucani's form vanished from view, Tavi cursing his positioning. He should have hidden himself amidships, closer to the most available lines to other vessels. But he wanted to be aft because it was closer to the Vipori, closer to whatever meeting Lena had arranged months ago. He cleared the field, making the corner of the farm ship's building as fast as he could. Rounding the turn, he could see the narrow channel between the sides of the storage shed and the ship's railings. Two thin rope bridges ran from the Abruzzi. One crossed over to the storage ship Bianco, while the other led to the Scalino, a small service vessel. He just needed to see which one Lucani would take. 3 more dim shadows were in his way, a trio of workers who had come out into the night to see what the commotion might be. Lucani bolted from behind the small crowd, making for the second of 2 bridges. Now the only thing stopping Tavi from putting him down with a green stone were the 3 farmers in the line of fire. Tavi wasn't as good a runner as Lucani. As an experienced deckman, Lucani could likely scramble across the bridge in an instant. From either ship, he'd be able to reach 3 or 4 others. He'd be gone. And with him, any chance Tavi would have of keeping his role. He ran the edge of his green etnosite stone against the abrasion strip sewn into his sleeve, the small ball lighting in a shower of emerald sparks. Sifter in pursuit, he repeated, and the 3 farmers hit the deck as one. The shadowed form of Lucani leapt for the rope bridge as Tavi let his stone fly, a trail of verdant fire shooting forward in a line toward his prey. Impacting with a small puff of visible dust, Lucani let out a cry as he stumbled back to the deck. Yet it was clear to Tavi that he had mostly missed, likely catching the edge of his quarry's coat. The man was back up in an instant and poised to leap back to the bridge. A blue line of light suddenly shot through the night from above Lucani, coming from halfway up the mast. The projectile struck the back of the man's head, exploding in a cloud of azure rain. There was a gasp from the 3 panicked farmers as Tavi pushed through them, close enough to hear the crunch of Lucani's head hit the wooden deck. He was dead before he landed. The back of his skull was covered in the toxic blue sludge contained in the pellet. Tavi ran to the body, knelt, and turned him over. The moonlight caught in Lucani's eyes as they looked lifelessly back up at him. All the questions he had prepared, the theories about the reasons for the theft of the bodies from the morgue and who Lucani might have been working for, all meaningless now, just as Tavi's future was likely to be. Lena's paper and its secrets clung to the inside of his vest pocket, weighing upon his mind as 2 boots hit the deck beside him. He looked up, seeing the same long dark cloak he himself wore, split down the middle to reveal the same bright blue vest. An identical belt held pouches for sling bullets. Hands wearing the same black gloves he wore reached down to pull up Lucani's head like a trophy before allowing it to fall back to the deck. Romano Santini, Tavi asked in shock, what are you doing here? Your job, Bonatti, as usual. The face that looked back at him was the mirror opposite of his own. Skin so pale it was almost snow, unusual for Sicilians, contrasted with Tavi's olive complexion. Santini kept his hair cut short and his face clean shaven. whereas Tavi prided himself in his long pulled back hair and well-trimmed beard. Lena had always called his look whimsical. Most notably, a sneer seemed permanently affixed to Santini's mouth. Tavi loved to smile. Even if smiles were harder than they used to be in the city, they were worth the effort. Yet Tavi's face wore no smile now. If Romano were there, he was likely there under the orders of the High Sifter. Apparently, the arbiters didn't trust Tavi to finish the case. You're a sifter too, Romano. Tavi pushed forward, grabbing Santini by the collar of his robe. We needed to know why Lucani broke into the morgue. Don't you want to know? I follow orders, Tavi. Romano pushed Tavi back. You had them too. Detain Lucani, but if he resists, shoot. Varen's orders came straight from the arbiters. The arbiters didn't used to give those kinds of orders. Under High Arbiter Rosa, we used to care why people did these things. That used to matter. A lot of things used to matter, Romano said, pointing off at the collection of singers, swaying mindlessly in front of the ruins of Catania. As a child, Romano used to live there too, just as Tani and Lena had. But that was 20 years ago, before the Sundering. Now there was a new generation of children, like Tavi's and Romano's, who had never known anything but this battered collection of ships. A life lived just off the shore, in the shadow of Etna and the singers. Hope that could be seen, but never touched. People don't steal corpses, Romano. There has to be a reason. Romano shook his head. I'm not High Arbiter Citra, so I don't care. I care about keeping my job, which you obviously don't. Those orders were for me. Why are you here, Romano? This is my case. Were you following me? On instruction. Straight from High Stifter Varen. I guess he knew you'd fail here, and I know why. I did some checking on Lucani myself. Romano tapped the lifeless form at their feet. I knew you'd keep your blue in your pocket. Lucino's got a kid and a dead wife just like you. You felt sorry for him. You've lost your edge. It was too much. For a moment, all Tavi could see was the unmoving form of Lena, still as beautiful as ever, with an emerald patch of poison upon her neck. The cold, dead weight in his arms as he held her, his lips and tears falling upon lifeless skin. His mind going red, Tavi lashed out with a wild swing of anger. Romano leaned back, dodging the blow easily and planting his fist in Tavi's stomach. Like I said, Romano's voice somehow found another level of sneer as Tavi bent over, coughing. No edge. Varen wants to see you at sunrise muster. You better go get ready. You'll need to think about where you'll live once the arbiters take your sifter vest from you. I'll clean up here. This is my case now. Tavi crossed the rope bridge towards the Scalino, keeping Romano and the lifeless body of Lucani behind him. His theories about the case washed away like the tide, but his anger at Romano stayed with him as he crossed the deck. The Scalino, to the Minetta, to the Vapore. That was the route. By the time he got to the watership and scaled the outside hull in the shadows, it would be moondark. That's what he needed to focus on. His hand reached for his vest pocket, feeling the note trapped inside. His career was dead, as lifeless as the body Romano Santini had sent to the deck. Now, Lena's mysterious final message was all he had left. All right, so that's done. Now I need to see the chat, which is actually too far away. So yeah, so that is it. Great descriptions of the ship and the one. Okay, so I should have put my laptop closer to my camera. I wanted to. This is my camera setup. So let's see. Great. Do you have a background in sailing? I was in the Navy for 10 years. That would be the extent of my background as far as sailing goes. I've done a lot of sailing, but not the sailing ship kind of sailing. But I've been fascinated with ships and the Navy and the ocean all my life. And I lived in Sicily for 3 years as part of the Navy. And that was definitely why this setting spoke to me so much. And it was the Italians and the Sicilians were just such an amazing people. And I really wanted to look at that whole world through like a fantasy lens, as well as tell a mystery and a father-daughter story as well. Let's see. You have another 15 minutes to answer questions, DH. Okay, so if people have questions, you can put them in the chat and I will lean forward. I didn't really consider how I would read these. But you know, hey, it's a dry run here. We'll work through it. I am going to take a drink while I wait and see if anyone has any questions. I will say while I wait, holy cow, was I scared to do that. And I'm not afraid of public speaking at all. I've done lots of public speaking, but there's something about reading your own writing is just something I had not done. And when I signed up for the various things in QuaranCon and they asked me, hey, do you want to do this reading? My immediate impulse was, of course not, hell no. And that's why I did it, because it's scary and it's good to do things that scare you and challenge you. And now the next time this comes up, this will be something that I will have done. So I appreciate everybody listening to it. I hope you enjoy it. That book is technically out now. I'm launching it tomorrow, but it is available on Amazon now. The book is called Shades of the Sea. And it is like I said, it's a fantasy mystery. It is a father-daughter story. It's, I can't seem to just pick a genre and just stay in a lane. I always kind of wander around a bit. My other series, which is a 7-book series, is adventure fantasy. It's kind of adventure portal fantasy, but it's lighter on the fantasy side than the adventure side. I tend to write a lot less wizards and elves and dwarves, and a lot more of kind of my own weird ideas. So as I am filling time here, I'm from Maine. I wore my Maine shirt and then I zipped it up because I got cold. But Maine is a big part of my life, and I live in Maine now. And I haven't written about Maine, which is kind of weird considering how important it is to me. But I probably will get there.
If your laptop is too far away, you do have more questions in the chat.
Oh, I do. Okay, because you're just like, hey, Dave, you're babbling. Oh, you have to scroll down. Oh, look at this. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. Thank you for that. Oh, there's more questions in the chat. Who is your favorite character? How easy is it to take locals? Okay, so my apologies. I could not see those. They were below my window. Okay, so the question is, how easy is it to take a well-known place and put a fantasy lens over the top? It's as easy or as hard, I think, as you want it to be. In my case, I took Catania and I took Sicily and I blew it up. So anything the entire thing takes place outside of Catania, which is a place I actually used to live. Therefore, the details don't necessarily have to be, what street is where and where's this church and where's this market. On the other hand, my Ever series deals very much with real places and a real mountain. And so I had to do a ton of research. It was like a year's worth of research before I could start the Everest books. So it's not easy. But the nice thing about writing fantasy is it gives you a little bit more leeway than other genres to fudge things by saying, oh, well, it's an alternate world. That's why it's different. Let's see. Next question. Who is your favorite character? My favorite character is Audenzia, or Z, which is Tavi's 17-year-old daughter. And one of the things that I liked writing about with this book is that it is a book about grief. And even though Lena, Tavi's wife, Z's mother, is actually a significant role in the story, she's not just dead there to motivate people. She has a lot to do in this story. I like Z and Tavi and how this death brought them together stronger rather than driving them apart. I see that drive them apart trope all the time, and that's fine, but I didn't want to do that. I wanted these two to be, them against the world. And Z is just such a fun character, and she has Tavi's broken, whereas Z in some ways has the advantage of being a bit younger and being grief-stricken with her mother's death, but also kind of having that teenager energy that I remember having. And so Z is my favorite character. She is a ton of fun. I like people who cause trouble, and she's a troublemaker. Let's see which part of Maine. So I've lived all over the place in Maine. At one point in the Navy, they stationed me in a place called Machias, which is, it's actually Cutler. Machias is the closest place to it. And it's about 2 hours north of Bangor, or I would say it's about 6 hours north of Boston. And it's actually very close to the first place the sunlight hits in the United States. Now I live in southern Maine, south of Portland, and I live very, very close to the ocean. And particularly the way everything has been over the past year. I mean, look, we're not going to dance around why we're doing QuaranCon. With everything with COVID and lockdowns, and you can't go anywhere and you can't do anything, to be able to just walk by the ocean, to be able to walk in the trees. And, I'm very, very fortunate to live near a bunch of really great walks. And Maine to me is that. It's the nature, it's the pine trees, it's the snow, it's the mountains, it's the ocean. It's all of that. And I adore living here. Now, I don't think I have missed any. Oh, yeah, there we go. Other than setting, is this a personal story for you? It's not a personal story for me in terms of like loss, but it is a personal story for me in terms of processing through traumatic events and how you can find people. I like to think of these people as kind of having half a heart, and the two of them together can have one heart until they learn how to kind of fill things up again. And right now there's just so many things that we have to deal with, and I think sometimes we struggle to keep those things to ourselves because we don't want to burden other people. And so the personal part of this story for me really is about that. I write popcorn with character, I think, and the character part is just super important to me. The popcorn part is the fun part. I don't write tremendously grim. In some ways, this might be the grimmest thing I've written, but I do like, I like very much exploring people and exploring the insides of people and exploring what makes them think things and do things. And, like most writers would say, every one of these characters is me in some way. And I remember being 17 and thinking, okay, nothing can stop me. And I remember being, closer to the age that Tavi's at, which is a little bit younger than I am, and really starting to recognize, oh no, like time has limitations. And, there are things that you probably are never going to accomplish. And to just kind of, I think when you're young, there are no walls, it feels like at times, and that, or at least it did for me. And then when you get older, you start to see like they load in, like they texture load in, the walls start showing up, and you're like, oh, that's probably never going to happen. And oh, that's a thing I wanted to be able to do but can't. I think someone had a question up about cover design. Oh, did I miss that? Let's see. Oh, I really like your first Everest cover. Who created that? Okay, all my covers come from the same wonderful, amazing woman, which is Marta Deck. And she makes these covers. She lives in Poland. And I met her through a pre-made, The Fifth Interdictor, another one of my books that was a pre-made. And then I started working with her. And she came on for the fourth Everest cover. We did 4 through 7. And then I realized I wanted to redo 1 through 3 with her artwork. And her Under Everest cover is my favorite forever. I mean, I love the Shades of the Sea cover, but her Under Everest cover and how she captured Nima's spirit, and Nima's the main character of that series, is this plucky young Sherpa woman, and I decided to write an epic fantasy 7-book series about her. She's just amazing, and Marta just did a fantastic job capturing Nima. Love that cover. I love covers that say this is, I love where it says the tin. This is what you're getting. And I feel like that cover totally tells you what's inside. Thank you, P.S. Livingstone, for pointing that out. I'm looking to see if I missed anything else. I really like your cover. No, I think I got them all. And are we at our time? Close. I think we got like 5 minutes.
If you just want to tell us where we can find
sure,
your work, unless we get a last minute question, that would be awesome.
Sure. So you can find my work. So you can go to dhdunn.com, and all of my work is there except Shades of the Sea. I was remiss in updating the website for that, which is bad author. Everything's on Amazon. You can search for DH Dunn on Amazon. The Fifth Interdictor is also available off Amazon. That's my fantasy novella. Basically, female magical RoboCop in reverse is The Fifth Interdictor. My main series, which is Fractured Everest, is 7 books long so far, and that is available on Kindle Unlimited and on Amazon. And that's all I have. I mean, I'm happy. I've got like, 9, 10 books out. I never thought I'd get that much done. So I'm so excited about what's coming this year and more books in this series. And this book, Shades of the Sea, launches tomorrow. And if you liked what you heard today, the rest of the book will tell you where everything's going. I wish I could have read the chapter that introduces Z, but there's too much backstory required. I figured I'd start with Tavi.
Okay, thank you so much, DH. Did you have another thing?
Nope, I'm good.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you so much for the reading. Thank you for doing Core and Con with us, and we'll see you, everybody.
Thanks very much, everyone. Really appreciate it. And it might be over.
Yeah. So, oh wait, I am